Hi, welcome to Anaprime Recap. You must use the forbidden word of summoning to unleash the ultimate power in your magic ring and save all your friends from destruction. We continue our journey through the anime Welcome to Demon School, episodes 16 to 19. The eve of the Batterers Festival is finally enacted. This day is designed especially for the students to enjoy the festival with peace of mind, because the next day the instructors will judge the batterers. Iruma is eager to enjoy the festival with his friends, but Kiryu says that he will not be able to join the group because he has important matters to attend to, and so the protagonist continues exploring the event with Clara and Asmodeus. The misfit young man, in his first few minutes at the party, ends up single-handedly detonating the main performance of the yakisoba battlers, leaving the demons incredulous about his ability to eat. Further on, the trio meets up with their classmates, excited about the big day, each of them proud of the group of battlers they joined. Sabnok says that his group will make a presentation to honor the achievements of the Demon King, and he will be the one to play him. Iruma asks Jazz, his classmate, what his group will demonstrate at the festival. The young man replies that the battlers of the new magic, responsible for discovering new spells, will present something totally new, a magic capable of producing water through a simple pebble. Another student, Misfit, says that his group of battlers have developed and created a magical device, whereby putting on a virtual wizardry hat, one would be taken to a fictional adventure, similar to virtual reality glasses. Everyone is excited about the presentations of this year's projects. The students try to outdo each other to get the special prize. After all, this is the goal of all the demons. The class then separates. Everyone had to prepare their projects for the day of the event. In the space of the magical apparatus battlers, Asmodeus explains the plan to his friends, the goal being to be quick and ensure certain victory. The bright young man says that they should wait for the students to gather in the square, and when the bell sounds to signal the beginning of the party, fireworks will be set off across the sky. Asmodeus also says that there is a distance between the square and the place where the fires should be set off, so he asks Iruma to be responsible for carrying out the main task. Clara intervenes and asks her to be in charge of this mission. But the young man says that only his friend is the fittest to accomplish such an important feat, and Iruma agrees, a little embarrassed. Asmodeus says that everything will be alright, for he will provide his friend with some of his flames. However, when a small fire breaks out on her fingertips, Clara decides to help and puts the wick that was connecting the fireworks into the flames. Hopelessly expecting a huge explosion, Asmodeus throws himself and his friends away from the launcher, but absolutely nothing happens. Clara's carelessness and innocence make the trio realize that the fireworks were not inside the device. At this moment we realize that Kiryu has the fireworks in his hands. The young man was hiding in his secret room, just waiting for the right moment to put his evil plan into practice. At the demonic customs, Sullivan is still detained and under interrogation, at which point we see that Henri, the head of the demonic police, has received information directly from Ball, who states that the director of the Babel's institution has gone illegally to the human world and is currently forcibly keeping a young man in his residence. Back at school, Iruma continues to search tirelessly for Kiryu, who is missing. Clara and Asmodeus were also helping in the search, and at the end of the day, the trio is reunited. The Wonder Boy hypothesizes that the veteran ran away for fear that the project would fail, but the protagonist says that Kiryu would not be capable of doing such a thing. At dusk, the veteran is in his secret room. The young man recalls a conversation he had with Ball, in which the demon says that the young man represents the true form of a creature from the underworld. His innocent smile hides all the rottenness that exists inside. The evening comes and all the students have fun at the festival, testing some students' projects, tasting food and enjoying the charismatic event of the institution. Kiryu, seeing the happiness of his classmates, finally decides to begin his evil plan. The senior destroys the necklace he was wearing around his neck and a huge bang goes off throughout the school, terrifying everyone present. Thus, several invisible barriers are created around the school. Iruma meets Clara and Asmodeus in the corridors of the institution, but as he approaches his friends, he realizes that they are separated by an invisible wall, so that several students are trapped in certain spaces, not knowing how they will get out of where they are. The protagonist, after spending a long time analyzing the magical walls, realizes that they are very similar to Kiryu's familiar ability, but could not understand why all those barriers were invoked. The students continue on without understanding what was happening all over the institution. The teachers are ordered by the substitute principal Kalego to check if all the students are okay after the huge earthquake. The members of the student council proceed to the president's office, where they look for new orders on how they should act in that situation, but are barred by an invisible wall when they arrive there. Ameri tells everyone to remain calm, to assess what is happening, and to make sure that the students are safe. In the corridors of the school, Kalego follows along with Professor Robin. The two search for the person responsible for causing all the chaos, but also encounter a magical wall that prevents them from moving forward. Kalego ignores the obstacle and with that conjures his Cerberus magic. He summons the famous three-headed hellhound, wrapped in a spell of electricity, destroying the barrier with ease. However, after a few seconds the invisible wall regenerates and returns to its full state without any damage. Kalego wonders who was responsible for creating this amazing defensive magic. He says it could be a level 9 or 10 demon. And so he hypothesizes that this person has something to do with the warden's arrest. After all, Sullivan would be the only one able to break through all those barriers at once with his powerful magic. Talking with Robin, Kalego has a brilliant idea. He contacts one of his helpers and informs him what he should do in the midst of that situation. At that moment, all the students are alerted with a last-minute announcement over the school's demonic intercom. Professor Dolly, upon receiving Kalego's instructions, explains to the students that they should not be afraid of anything. He says that this was a surprise event made by the new magic and game battlers. He also says that the school is now a labyrinth. Everyone must avoid hitting the invisible walls and must reach the final goal, the central square. He concludes by saying that the first players who reach the goal will win some special prizes. In this way, the students put their fear aside and enter the new game to win the prizes. Kalego then gives orders to all the teachers to keep the students who appear in the main square safe, and the other teachers are to inspect the place for clues and information about what happened. Meanwhile, he and Robin would investigate the document warehouse for suspects. Anyone who is able to create barriers is now a possible culprit. Shortly after, the students start arriving in the main square, and the teachers need to reassure everyone that everything is okay. Ameri arrives on the scene with the student council, and also helps to calm things down. Information is beginning to reach Kalego. One of the teachers informs that the entire school is surrounded by the barrier, making it impossible for anyone to enter or leave the institution. The teacher of the Misfits feels a suspicion, as it is very strange for more than half the school to arrive at the meeting point in a few minutes. In his secret room, Kirio realizes that his plan is going according to plan. The young man conjures a map of the institution, and from it he realizes where the students are. He modifies the labyrinth so that they all gather in the same place, for as soon as they all reach the objective, he will blow up the central square. His plan is to take out all the students and teachers of the school, and as time passes, everything conspires in his favor. However, the young man realizes that someone is heading for his secret room, ignoring the warning to head towards the square. Iruma makes his way to the secret room, which not long ago was with the veteran. The problem is that it would be difficult to reach the place with all the invisible barriers. We see that a few hours earlier, the trio of friends were discussing the respect of the situation. The protagonist tells Asmodeus that magic is certainly Kirio's. The Wonder Boy, who was on the other side of the bar with Clara, conjures his fire sword and with a single blow opens a space in the invisible wall. Iruma asks his friends to help him reach the tower on the 3rd floor, and they begin to work out a way to help him. Asmodeus asks his friend to conjure up paper and pencils, so that he can draw a map of the institution. He explains that even then, it will be difficult to find the invisible walls in the school. Clara has the idea of summoning her magical paper soldiers, who would be responsible for indicating where the barriers are along the way. These little creatures have a specific condition: the more magic you put into them, the harder they work. Asmodeus devotes part of his magic to the dolls, and so the soldiers proceed to discover where invisible walls exist. Iruma goes through all the ways that his friend is indicating by the hellphone. The protagonist aims to find his veteran friend as quickly as possible. At the same time, Professor Kalego finds Kirio's student file. He immediately asks all the teachers to search for this student. He deduces that this student is the cause of all the chaos. The students who were in the central square start to make a mess to entertain themselves, but almost create an accident. Ameri intervenes and says that everyone can make a mess, but must remain silent. They are euphoric for the glorious beginning of the festival, for the ringing of the bell in the tower would finally declare the event. Iruma finally finds himself facing the secret wall that Kirio used as his secret passage. The veteran, on the other hand, has already begun preparations to put his machine to work. The misfit young man uses the device capable of opening the secret passage, however is surprised by yet another barrier protecting the door. He starts shouting for his friend to undo the magic. A few seconds pass, and after knocking on the door, the protagonist finally enters the room. He notices that Kirio is looking abnormal, without his glasses and with a different hairstyle. The veteran then tells Iruma that everything was going according to plan. He demonstrates the destroying machine, Gabuko, the one responsible for causing the destruction of the entire Babel's institution and for eliminating everyone there. The protagonist asks why his friend has such a diabolical plan. Kirio then begins to tell a little about his past and the history of his Ami clan, one of the strongest in the underworld. also known as the Iron Barrier. When he was still a child, he was declared to be a demon who possessed very little magic in his body, and was therefore a disgrace to the renowned name of his family. Even his mother despised him from that day on, as a result of which she sent him to the Garden of Delinquents, an extremely strict elementary school with its students. In this place he was despised and humiliated by teachers and other students. However, when it seemed that no one would believe in the young man anymore, only one girl showed herself to be present in his life. The two always talked and had fun together, until one day, a group of bullies decided to play a bad joke on the two schoolboys. The young men forcibly took a lucky charm from the girl, which had been given to her by her deceased grandmother. The group of bullies then immobilized the two colleagues. The gang leader mercilessly threw the girl's necklace into the river. Kiryu broke free and conjured up his magic barrier to hold the artifact, but in a moment of carelessness, he destroyed his own invisible wall, letting the medallion fall into the river. Seeing her friend's expression, he realized that it conveyed anguish and suffering, and shortly after, the girl was transferred from the school. But Kiryu's story took a different turn from that day on. When he saw the expression of pain on the face of the only person who cared, he changed. The young man realized that his true ambition was to see the suffering on people's faces, and this made him extremely happy. Some time later, at a batterer's party, Kiryu was walking around the institution and already had a desire to become a batterer of magical apparatuses, because his fixation with objects that had harmed people was immense and frightening. On this particular day, Ball was at school, and upon noticing the young man's calm gaze and corrupted mind, decided to give him a chance to join the group. After all, he would be a fundamental piece in his evil plan. Ball explains that he wants to bring back the chaos that existed in the underworld, where all demons battled without any rules, and that his goal was to wipe out all those who are at the top of the demonic rank, i.e. the very ones responsible for bringing order and security to that world. Thus, Kiryu joins Ball and begins to study at the Babel's institution, following the principles his master has taught him all this time, looking forward to the day when he will finish with everyone in that school. After telling Iruma his plan, he expected to see a look of despair on the young man's face. After all the students would be eliminated. Clara and Asmodeus would not survive either, and the next day of the festival, the parents would find their children already dead, and it would be a paradise of expressions of suffering and pain. The protagonist, when he raises his face, does not show any kind of feeling. He just walks normally towards some boxes, stacks them up, and takes out the apparatus responsible for performing the big explosion of the machine. At this moment Kiryu realizes that Iruma, though he appears to be someone kind and friendly, is a young man who has been through so many desperate situations in his life that telling him his diabolical plan would make no difference. The veteran is shocked to see that he has found his true enemy, someone who would not surrender to despair. The protagonist says he will not return the magic orb to the young man. At that very instant, the countdown to the battlers' party begins, 30 seconds to the ringing of the bell. Iruma, with all his courage, runs to the window of the tower and jumps out. He then conjures the power of the word, release, from his ring, and thus a dragon wrapped in electricity is summoned, carrying the sphere with it to the top of the barrier. Kiryu says that it will be impossible to break through his powerful invisible wall. Even with Sullivan's magic, it would not be enough to defeat him. Iruma then says that he will break the promise he made to his grandfather, and after this, he utters the forbidden word, Pandarula. And so demonic wings grow on his back and the dragon's power increases absurdly. Using all the magic contained in the ring, the protagonist finally manages to shatter the invisible barrier. The sphere was still rising at a high speed. When the countdown ended and the bell rang, the sphere finally exploded, releasing the amazing fireworks. The artifact of destruction was also released in the explosion, and would cause irreparable damage, but since it was released into the sky, the school did not suffer any damage. All the students were amazed at something so incredible, never before seen in that world. The teachers and the demons watching were delighted with the light show across the sky. Kiryu was disappointed that his plan had failed. He was flying over the school next to Iruma, in an invisible barrier. The protagonist was exhausted from having used all his power, but he still had a huge smile on his face for bringing happiness to everyone who for the first time could watch such an incredible presentation. Some time after the fireworks, the protagonist wakes up next to his grandfather. The young man is happy to see Sullivan again, but tells him he can't move his body, then asks what happened after he fainted. The demon then gives a brief recap of what occurred a few hours earlier. At the moment Iruma released his enormous power, Pandarula, Kalego and his colleague were approaching the final of the tower. When they reached the location, Professor Robin conjured his familiar magic, one hit, one kill, shooting a powerful spectral arrow capable of stopping only when it reaches its target. The enormous power manages to cross the invisible barrier and at an absurd speed goes through several obstacles, until it collides with the demonic prison, the place where the Babel school principal was imprisoned. At that moment, Sullivan reads a message that was next to the arrow. And so the powerful demon leaves the place without a care in the world. The principal flies to the school, and as he approaches the site he sees the fireworks display. However, he realizes that the explosion also released numerous meteorites that were heading at high speed towards the school. Sullivan, realizing the danger that everyone was in, uses his powerful magic to accumulate all the meteorites around him, expelling them outside the school, thus generating more fascinating explosions to the students' eyes. After saving the students' lives, all the teachers meet with the principal. They proceed to Kiryo's secret room, and upon arriving there, the guardians surround the veteran with their powers. Without any reaction, the young man receives the news that he has been arrested. Kiryo says that he created this whole evil plan by himself, receiving no help from anyone, stating that he doesn't regret what he did. After all, this has always been his dream since he arrived at the institution. That being the case, the young man is finally arrested by the demon police. Before he goes, he asks Sullivan to give his grandson a message as soon as he wakes up. The veteran says that Iruma should beware of the evil around him and that very soon he could again witness the feeling of true despair. After his arrest, the principal thanks all the teachers who worked hard to protect the students, especially Kalego, who was able to shoulder the responsibilities of a principal. A few minutes pass and Iruma finally awakens. Sullivan tells his grandson everything that has happened. The young man is still worried about the veteran, but his grandfather comforts him, saying that since there was no fatal accident, the young man's punishment in prison would be light. From there, Iruma can see all the students happy and grateful for the wonderful fireworks. Sullivan takes him to the square, and the young man makes a speech saying that he belongs to the magic apparatus fighters, and that none of this would be possible without the help of Alice Asmodeus, Valak Clara, and the team leader, Amy Kiryo. Everyone applauds him and his best friends finally meet him again. The trio ends that night with an incredible feeling of mission accomplished. The next day, the Battlers Festival begins. The students and teachers begin to vote for the group that stood out the most. At the end of the event, the votes would be counted and then the winning team would be declared. This day is always celebrated with great joy, but family members were also present at the scene, leaving their children in anguish. While Iruma and Asmodeus were preparing to make the final adjustments to their performance space, Clara appears with her entire family, accompanied by her brothers and her mother, all together part of the Valak clan. The girl's mother thanks the two young men for always being there for her daughter, helping her and protecting her when needed. The family puts on a show of presentation and goes on to enjoy the festival together. Iruma and his friend prepare to go out and watch the attractions, but at that moment, Asmodeus' mother finally finds her son. The Wonder Boy asks how she managed to get to the school, being that he asked his butler to stop her, but the woman replies that she used her ear-cleaning technique on her servant, making him sleep. Asmodeus Amaryllis is leader of the Lust of the 13 Crowns. She is excited to meet the best friend her son talks so much about. The Wonder Boy interrupts the conversation and warns Iruma that he will soon be back for the performance. Asmodeus must look for some way to get rid of his mother, but for now, the two of them go on together to enjoy the festival. Iruma notices that all the students are accompanied by their families, and just as the feeling of sadness was about to take over the young man's mind, Sullivan surprises him with opera. His grandfather says that he has kept his promise and would like to enjoy the festival with his beloved grandson. So the protagonist goes on observing the various attractions alongside Sullivan and his butler. Opera gets carried away and wins most of the prizes at the event. The parents of the students complain to Kalego about this, and the professor then says that he will arrest this individual. But upon seeing Opera, Kalego is paralyzed and leaves without saying a word. Later, the group of magical apparatuses let off several fireworks, leaving everyone amazed again by that combination of colors in the sky. A briefly short time later, Iruma takes a picture next to Sullivan and Opera. The young man was happy to finally be part of a family that really loved him. One of the teachers announces that the most anticipated moment of the evening has arrived. The vote counting was over and the winning group of battlers would finally be announced to everyone at the event. Which group will win the long-dreamed-of prize? What to expect from the demonic institution after this event? So, what did you think of this anime? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like it and subscribe for more anime recaps. See you next time.